Hi everyone, welcome back to Cottoverdi. If you're new to my channel, this is a channel all about gardening here in our English cottage garden here in the Chiltern Hills. We have a lovely walled garden. It's very old, but the garden itself is something we've designed and grown together. I garden here with my husband Richard. This video today though is a bit different because this is all about the wedding celebration that we held in this garden for my son and daughter-in-law, and kind of this year 2025 and a bit of 2024 has all been about building up towards this celebration in our garden and trying to make sure that everything looked as good as it could for July. Now July is normally quite a bare patch in the garden, so I grew a lot of annuals from seed and just cherished every single flower that bloomed. I was also growing the flowers for to make the confetti, and I've got videos about how I did that. So I made the confetti for this wedding, but also for my daughter and her wife's wedding in California. I took the confetti out there so that they had something from the garden here in the UK, which they wanted. So I made the confetti. I also did the bride's bouquet. I did 4 bridesmaids bouquets and 7 buttonholes or boutonnieres. And then I did all the table decorations for the marquee that we had here in the garden. And today I am going to show you as much as I can what it looked like on the day, because actually on the day we were just enjoying ourselves and I wasn't doing a lot of filming, so I did a little bit of filming before showing sort of the setup. I tried to capture some videos of the table decorations, but they weren't quite finished when I took the videos, and I also tried to take some videos afterwards. But what you're going to see today is a montage, and I'll explain as we go along, of everything that we did to prepare the garden, and you'll get a little feel for what it was like on the day. We haven't had any of the official photos back or anything yet, so this is literally just me trying to grab a few moments to show a few things. Oh, and I also provided the flowers for the lady who baked the cake, so I gave her some flowers from the garden for her to decorate the cake with too. Anyway, let me show you what it was like. So all the guests entered through this gate here. It's closed and locked at the moment. It always is normally, but we opened it up and we decorated it with festoon lighting, and it just looked really, really pretty. And then everybody walked along this passageway here. It looks really narrow there actually in the photo, but it's not. I'll show you. And we'd also decorated that with loads of festoon lighting sort of going overhead, so it looked really romantic and pretty. So we'll walk along here, which is along past this really old brick wall. It's absolutely beautiful. And then out towards the garden. If you're new to this channel, you won't know that actually this garden is a work in progress. So nothing's finished yet. We still have this whole flower bed here to prep and plant. There'll be a flower bed going along the back wall here, and there'll be a flower bed going along the yew hedge here. So nothing's finished, but this area was just sort of bare earth, a bit like this one here. So we covered it in mulch, and then Richard created these beautiful hearts out of cobbles. And I just think they're really cute. And in fact, my daughter-in-law and my son really liked it, and they thought it was a really nice surprise. And yeah, a lot of people commented on the hearts. So if you do have a bare patch like this, grab some bricks or some paving slabs or something, or even sticks, and just make a pretty romantic pattern. And you don't have to plant every area up. If it's not ready, you could just do something like this. So as we turn the corner here, this is where we had the cobble hearts, and then this path we strung festoon lighting up all the way along this path and then round the corner. And it was kind of to lead the way, but also just to add a little bit of romance to the path that everyone was taking towards the patio and the marquee. So as people came around the corner here, they would have seen a great big marquee up here. I'll pop a picture of what it was like, but there was a massive marquee filling this area. And then they would have seen our new gravel garden here. And all of this was strung with festoon lighting right the way through to the arch there and through to the patio. And so that kind of directed everybody along the path where they needed to walk. And over this side, in this sort of brown area over here, where all the grass has died, this is where we had some tents set up for the chefs to do their cooking. So this was the whole catering area along the back here. I'll pop a picture up to show you what that looked like too. So it was sort of set back, but close enough to the marquee where it wouldn't cause any problems. So then people would have been directed along here with the festoon lighting and through to the archway. So this is our patio area. So we did leave this table and chair set out here for people who needed to sit down. You know, we have some elderly relatives. And then this area normally has a big wooden teak table in the centre there, but we moved that for the wedding. So this area actually, we had both parasols up to shade people from the sun and rain. And we also had, there was a food station over here where some of the food was being served. Now, I didn't get any pictures of that, but I just wanted to show you how wonderful this new pot looked. And so everything grew. So what I didn't have was the gypsophila. The gypsophila around the bottom didn't bloom in time, but all of the Salvia amistad looked absolutely perfect on the day. It's not as tall as it would normally get for me in the borders, but I did cram 3 plants in here so that it was a good display. And obviously the Wisley vanilla, Nemesia Wisley vanilla, smelled absolutely gorgeous. That smells like vanilla and it wafts through the air. Now from the patio here, people were able to go up the steps here, and this is where the entrance to the marquee was. So it was through this large arch that we have over there, and you know, in a few years' time, that would have been covered with roses, but the roses were kind of over. We didn't really have very many blooms on that arch, and also they weren't quite tall enough, but it didn't matter at all because I had all these patio pots here full of colour, and I will be doing a container update video for the people who've asked. I will be doing that next, probably in the very near future. I'll show you in detail what all the containers look like, but it was very colourful here. And then we walked up and entered the tent. I'll show you the area that the tent took up, the marquee took up on the lawn. So first of all, I should say that looking at the weather forecast, we knew that it was going to rain on the day. It was most likely to rain in the morning, and then we were hoping by the time we got back from the church that it would have stopped raining. So that didn't quite happen because even though the guests all came back in full sunshine and had a wander around the garden and were able to appreciate it, actually just after that it really started raining, so that by the time we all arrived, having had the family photos done outside the church, by the time we got here it was raining quite hard. So the parasols that we have here are really quite big, and they were able to protect the guests that wanted to hang around outside, and then we opened the marquee and the dance floor area for people to shelter from the rain there. And this was all part of the plan. Like, the marquee was really only here in case it rained. You never know what it's going to do in England, and even though it's been incredibly dry in the southeast of England all summer, it really hasn't rained sufficiently. It rained on the day that we probably didn't want it to, but it didn't matter, nobody cared. But what we did do, because we knew it was going to rain, is we ran a piece of coir matting, which is kind of what we use as like the matting in a footwell. It's quite coarse, but it's really good for like wiping your feet and stuff. And we ran a length of that between the patio here and the marquee because we knew that this area of grass was just going to get really muddy if it rained, and we were pretty sure that there was going to be some kind of dampness on the day. So that actually is one piece of advice I would give you, is that was really useful. It was an expense, but we were happy to do that just so that people didn't get, especially ladies, get their shoes all mucky. So this whole area here, literally from border to border, and from this border to that border, that was taken up with the marquee. Now the marquee that we had in the garden, I can't remember the exact measurements of it, but that doesn't matter really. But it I was able to seat all the people that we wanted to invite, plus have room for a dance floor and a bar, and it was absolutely perfect. But the funny thing about this particular marquee is that it literally, without any planning at all, because we've had these borders in for a while, but without any planning at all, it literally just squeezed in. So it was edge to edge with our borders, and it backed right up to the edges of our borders, which was actually perfect. So what we were hoping was that the borders around this whole area here would be part of the floral display for the wedding. That was the intention, but having them so close to the edge of the marquee just made it even more special. I really think that it sort of hugged the marquee. Now, a lot of the video footage that I'm showing you or about to show you shows the marquee with the clear plastic sides down, because that's how it was kept for the week that they sort of set up a week in advance of the wedding. I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So the 4 days before the wedding, they were setting up, and they kept those sides closed to stop, I guess, all the dust and debris and wildlife getting in. So the sides were closed. So when I was taking the video, the sides were closed, but actually during the wedding, we had all the sides open, and I'll try and put up a few photos showing the sides open so you get sort of a feel of what it was like. But with all the people in it anyway, I couldn't get really good footage of how the flower beds looked from inside the tent. So inside the marquee, I keep calling it a tent. So what I will do is put up footage, or hopefully I'm putting up footage of what that looked like with all the flowers bordering the marquee. I really think it was so special. So many people commented on it, and I think having the borders as close as they were was fantastic. It really just helped you feel like you were in a field of flowers, I suppose. I do feel very fortunate that so much was in bloom at the time. I really didn't have very many dahlias, but there was a lot else in the borders that were blooming in time for this wedding. This border at the bottom here is where the dance floor was. So the dance floor backed right up to the edge here. The DJ was sort of standing on a little patch of ground here, and then the dance floor was this whole area. So this border actually it was quite important. It didn't have quite as many dahlias. I don't think Richard's Fortune was out in time. I'm pretty sure that Caitlin's Joy wasn't out at the time, but we did have all the phlox. We had a load of Status, loads of Melope, and all the Nicotiana that's out along here. That was all out. And I think this one at the bottom is called Polka. It's new to me this year, and that was also out at the time. We had loads of white snapdragons, and so it did look really, really pretty. So all in all, I do think that it worked out really well. I thoroughly enjoyed myself growing all the flowers and trying to create the right atmosphere for the bride and groom. And I'm so happy that I was able to be such a part of their wedding celebrations and give them what they really wanted. And I do think that they really appreciated it and they loved it. It was a lot of hard work. It's not for everybody. And actually doing the flowers on the day, as well as getting myself ready and being hostess, was quite a feat of achievement, but I managed to do it, and I did have a lot of help, and I do want to acknowledge how much help I had on the day, certainly from my daughter and her wife. They helped enormously, and in fact the mother of the bride, my new friend Katya, helped with setting out all the little vases and creating all the little vases that went on the table. We used bud vases, that's what the bride wanted, and we just filled them with loads and loads of colour. And in fact I also need to acknowledge that I did use some flowers from a friend's garden down the road. She had some beautiful orange crocosmia that has made me want to have orange crocosmia in my garden, because in fact they added such a statement. They were so beautiful and sort of whimsical and just that right spark of orange that I didn't have from anything else. My straw flowers weren't out in time, and I didn't have enough Rebecca, so actually having that pop of orange from her garden so kindly gifted was incredibly helpful. And as I said, I'm going to be planting some orange crocosmia in my garden because of that. I think it was beautiful. So whilst we didn't have everything that we wanted on the day, we didn't have loads of roses on the rose arch, and we didn't have all the dahlias that we wanted. We did have some. I do think actually that just trying to choose a range of plants in the hope that something was going to be available for me to cut actually did work. It was a huge benefit having such a range, and also having the raised flower beds that we put in earlier. I was able to literally go out there and cut every single thing that was in flower from those raised beds. And that also really helped, just having that one area that I could cut without worrying about what it was going to look like if I was taking too many flowers. So that was really useful. If there's anything you'd like to know that I haven't covered, then do just ask me in the comments and I'll see if I can help. This really isn't a how to do it, more just I'm letting you see what it was like, because so many of you lovely followers have asked to see what it was like on the day. So I thought I'd cobble something together so you could have a look. What I also need to say is that the beautiful, stunning, broken arch flower arrangement outside the church was created by a local florist, and she did an incredible job. So what Maud and I did was we sent her ideas of what the flowers that I was going to be using that Maud had chosen. So I sent her a load of pictures of things that I'd grown in the past that I thought would be in flower at this time, and she was able to then incorporate those into the flower arrangements so that everything coordinated. So what she produced looked very much like it had come from the garden here, because it was all the same sort of flowers, and I think that was incredible. She did a wonderful job. And so many people thought that I'd created that because it just tied in so well, but I did not create that. I wouldn't know how to or where to start to create a beautiful arch like that. And then this florist then took down the arrangement outside the church and brought it all here. Once we'd left the church, she then brought the entire arrangement here and placed it behind the bride and groom in the marquee. And I think that was absolutely incredible that she was able to do that too, and it just looked so perfect behind them. And thank goodness, because my grass border was looking a little bit ropey behind them, but that really just disguised the whole thing, so it was absolutely perfect. So please don't think that I made that arrangement. I didn't, and I wouldn't know where to start. Let me show you the raised beds where I grew so many of the flowers for the wedding. So these are the raised beds. We had 6 raised beds, a lot of cosmos and dahlias, salvia, amaranthus, more dahlias, and then we had the sweet peas that I was growing for the wedding. We had been away at my daughter's wedding in California about a month prior, and over that period it didn't rain sufficiently, and stupidly we didn't set up the irrigation. We weren't away for very long and we felt like it probably would rain enough. Anyway, because we didn't set up the irrigation, the plants got stressed, and by the time we came back I realised that there were quite a lot of green fly on the sweet peas, aphids. And there were a lot of ladybirds too, because I had let a lot of ladybirds loose in the garden. So actually the ladybirds were covering these plants. So I assumed, stupidly, that they would munch every single aphid in sight because they eat so many, and then my problem would be over, because they really were a lot of ladybirds. However, what happened was the plants got very stressed and just turned brown and crispy, and yeah, I don't know, they did not survive. So actually, having planted all these sweet peas for the wedding, I wasn't able to use any of them, because even though they were in flower for the wedding, there were quite a lot of flowers, and I'd been picking them religiously, like absolutely picking them to try to make sure they didn't go to seed. What happened was the ones that were in flower, and there were a lot of them, just had too many aphids on them, so I couldn't put them in the marquee. I couldn't put them in bouquets because I didn't want little green flies flying out and covering the bride or covering the guests. So whilst they're in flower, they smelt wonderful. I didn't use a single one of these sweet peas, and now I'm just going to rip the whole bunch out, like take this all out and pop something else in there. But everything else in this area looks absolutely fantastic, and considering I cut all of this a week ago, it's incredible how many things are flowering still. I can't believe how many flowers there are. I literally chopped absolutely everything, took every flower out. So I think having a few raised beds set aside was just the right decision for me. It's worked perfectly, and now I've got a summer ahead of me of being able to cut all these blooms and bring them inside the house, and I'm very tempted just to do this every year and not turn these into vegetable patches. Maybe I'll grow a few vegetables and some flowers too, because I just love being able to cut things from the garden and not actually take away from what's in the garden. So it's really nice having this patch here. Well, I really hope that you've enjoyed this look through the family photo album at the wedding that we had here in the garden. We had such a good time. I think the bride and groom really loved it, and I would definitely do it again, but not in the very near future. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it and found it fun and interesting. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time with more proper gardening content.